Hello guys. Third times is the charm. Because I keep getting my videos corrupted. Okay, so today, we're gonna learn about vent worms. So basically, they belong in the Cyberglobidae family, and there's typically like 180 species of them, and they're typically like tube-like worms. You know, they basically like live in tubes, and they live in tubes like buried in the substrate, or attached to like a hard sediment. And they're basically found in the ocean, and they're basically 100 to 10,000 meters below, which is pretty far. They can live pretty deep. They can live in cold areas or hot areas, and there's typically like 4 groups, which are the Frenutalia, the Frenutalia, the Vestimemphora, and the Sclerotium, and my favorite, which is the Osdax, which the O stands for bone and the last portion stands for Devourer. We're about to explain why. I'm about to tell you why. And they used to be classified for a while under these 2 phylas, which is Organophora and Vestimemphora. And basically the body plan, they're basically made up of a lot of segments. The head is made up of 1 to 200 separate or complex palps, and the panicules are tiny branches located on the side. And I have a little diagram that you see the little branch-like things that I'm pointing at right here. That's what those are. And also the prostemium is followed by the peristemium and then the trunk. And the pestosoma is behind the trunk, and it's also made up of segments called cheta. This is made of the branch-like keratin. And also we're about to continue here. Oh yeah, this also right here in the diagram, this is the trunk, and this is the ends. Okay, the continued. Most of the tubes are made up of keratin, and their tubes can be fringed, flared, and they can take on multiple different shapes because there are like 180 species after all. And typically they have to be above the ground so the worms are able to stretch themselves out of the tubes. I have a little video of, remember the beginning picture I set up? It's like a giant tube worm. And they basically near hydrodromal vents. I have a video showing all about that. And some worms can have palps, while the others can have way more than one. I'm gonna call them the bone devourers. That's the 4th part in the beginning of the video. Those are my favorite ones because they're the weirdest ones. And they can either be freed or fused together. And a virginium is a region behind the prostemium, and it also has a particular structure. And the trunk is, that's a long segment. And in the flagellum, in frenulum, there is a girdle of cheta, and in the Vestimemphora, there is no cheta. And in most vent worms, the ending of it is a short, multi-segmented region. It's basically hooked or plug-like cheta. And ocular plaques are a trunk-bearing thickening of the cuticle. And the epidermis contains the gland cells, the pili and the cilia tracts. Under the epidermis is a circular muscle and a long attitudinal muscle. Oh, here's another diagram. Like I said, the end of it. I didn't show you the other ones, but here's the palps again. Here's the prostemium, the peristemium, before that one. That's the anterior of the trunk. And also, at the very end, is the apestosoma. And I don't know what's on my sketchbook. I'm sorry, guys. That was not for me. I opened. I was like, come on. This is such nice diagrams. And that pink stuff was on it. I'm like, oh gosh darn it. And this one, here's the cheta. And they're highly segmented. They're basically made up of tons of segments. Oh yeah, here's the bone devourer. Here's one of them. It's the zombie worm, and it's devouring the bone of a dead whale. And all vent worms, honestly before that, scientists didn't really know what they did. Some thought they were filter feeders, or somehow get nutrition through their substrates or something, but there's actually a type of bacteria that helps them get their nutrition. And basically, almost theorized that they somehow get it when they're younger versions of vent worms. They get it through their skin, this bacteria. And It's also like called the trophosome, and it's located in like the trunk. This type of bacteria is called protobacteria, and also the Osdex has like a gamma protobacteria, and those worms depend on the bones to get collagen or like fats. And also they have like a gland that produces a type of acid that helps them burrow through the bone, so they're able to get their nutrients that way. I'm telling you, these worms are they're weird. You probably remember from my previous presentation a while back, I was teaching about the circulation system and gas exchange. You remember me talking about closed circulatory systems, that most of the blood vessels are inside, they don't go outside or anything. And like basically the major blood vessels are the dorsal and ventral longitudinal vessels, and the dorsal vessel is like bloated as a muscular pump. Like you can kind of see in the diagram, it's kind of like swollen. The dorsal blood vessel is like a pump. And they're, the hemoglobin, you learned about that in my other You Teach Fridays. It's a type of protein, and it basically helps them get like oxygen. And it might happen, scientists think it might happen like in the palps. But also, it keeps the sulfur in check because, they live in hydrothermal vents, and there's like a lot of, not all of them do, but there's a lot of sulfur there, and it helps to keep that in check, and it allows the cells to get oxygen also. Oh yeah, I have a video. Okay, this time it loaded. In the second video, it did not load. So let's watch this. Oh, like I'm saying about the nervous systems. I think scientists think it is able to like sense. It has like certain like sense organs. I don't know, because if you see it later in the video. Oh yeah, at the beginning those were hydrovents. You can kind of see that. But this is the type of large tube worm. See how like they're going back into the tubes, the little worms. When the crab approaches, see, it senses and it goes away. So that's what makes scientists think has some type of like sense. Which is honestly my next slide. The nervous system and sense organs. This is interoperable, and the nerve ring is right behind the proscenium, and the ventral nerve comes from the ganglion. And most vent worms, they have a bigger nerve cord in the anterior part of the trunk. And I have a little diagram right here. And oh yeah, about the gland. So this is what, like in the previous, like the bone devourers, this gland produces like a type of acid, so they're able to burrow through like the type of bone. And also, only the pestosoma has like 3 nerve cords. Some only have 1. Like at the end, you have like the different like type of vessels in this diagram, and the palps could have receptors, like I said in the beginning, since they're able to detect vibrations, and they're also able to go back in their tubes when bothered, like I kind of shown that in the video, kind of shown going back in their tubes. For reproduction, there's only like 1 vent worm that they know that they mentioned in the book that has like both sex. It can be both, but most of them are typically like separate, and their gonads are typically located in the trunks. And typically, fast and meant for friends, the sperms aren't like in clumps. Oh yeah, the bone devourers are really weird. Like the males are typically they're 100,000 smaller than the female. They're super small, and typically the female have like a whole bunch of them. They like have a whole harem, and these males like typically live in the tubes of the females, and they also have like yolk to make sperm. And also, for the female vent worms, they have a pair of ovaries, and also typically most of them do like fertilize internally. Okay, this next slide might scare y'all, I'm not gonna lie. It's like an up-close picture of these worms. Boom. It's an electron microscope. Here's one up close. And think about that before you guys go to bed, and I'm gonna pray and hope that my recording does not get corrupted for like the 3rd time. Pray for me, guys. Okay, goodbye.